Hi Libra, this is Lee at Fresh Astrology. We are looking at December 2017. So what we're going to do here is we're going to look at two of the main impactful transits going on during this month. That will be Saturn and Mercury retrograde. And I am going to do a separate look at Venus, which has more to do with love and money. On my website, that will be available as a download at www.freshastrology.com. But here we'll look at the very impactful larger transit of Saturn. Has deep meaning for us, and we definitely feel its presence. It's going across the very base point of your chart. This is a major angle in the chart. An angle is one of the more important points in a chart. So you feel this transit of Saturn across the base point of your chart, the Imam Coeli as it's called, but you can just think of it as the bottommost point of your chart. At the same time this is going on, when this will move and kind of switch gears for you, you've got Mercury retrograde going on at the same time. So the first whole part of December is about lessons learned. How we assimilate information, how we take what's happened to us and formulate thoughts about what's happened. So there are facts and circumstances in our life that are external to us. We can't control them. Then there's the stuff we think about the facts and the circumstances. There's the stuff we think about some of the lessons going on around us in life, the lessons that come in the form of facts and circumstances. And what we think we've learned versus maybe alternative things we could have learned, if that makes sense. One way to illustrate that is, let's say, I don't know, you bought a car and the car has something wrong with it. One person might draw from that circumstance a whole bunch of negative conclusions, like, this brand of car is a crappy car, I never should have purchased that car, I'm bad at buying cars, I just can't do this, I should never sign a contract alone, I should always have someone with me, blah 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 blah. Negative data interpretation. Another person buys a car, has something wrong with it, and they're like, I need to go to a mechanic. When can I do that? When do I have time in my schedule? Let me see if they can rent me a car. Do they have a loaner? Do they have a shuttle that can get me to work? And it's more like just trying to work with the situation factually, So there's something wrong with my car. I have no interpretation on that. I'm just going to work around it and figure out what to do in the meantime, because it's just a practical problem to solve. And there's no negative story around it. There's no self, like penalizing the self and, lecturing the self. There's no blaming another. There's no blaming the car. There's no blaming the manufacturer. There's no blaming the mechanic. So that's our data interpretation skill, or lack thereof. And so Libras, generally speaking, have this ability to find the midpoint, to see both sides. But with Saturn down here kind of pulling your chart down, working on your mind, you've been working on how you think. You've been working for 2.5 years on how you think, how you interpret data, how you tell stories to yourself. So a lot of you have been working on this skill, or seeing through circumstances how you may need to work on this skill. So it's already been there in your life, and this shouldn't sound like totally new to you. So as you wrap up this phase in the first 3 weeks of December, it's really reviewing what you've learned over the past 2.5 years. Researching, reviewing, recalibrating, renewing. It's all the rescheduling. it's kind of working with whatever's going on a practical level in your life, whatever's happened in this third house area, which is where Saturn has been. This is the area of life that has to do with cars. It could be transportation issues. It could be some kind of job where you use language a lot. You know, you have to write, draft, speak publicly. It depends, but you're learning from that experience. Maybe you've learned a lot. Maybe you learned a lot about writing, organizing your thoughts. Maybe you've learned a lot about how to speak to others in certain situations. So there's been a lot of learning and communication skill building here. Definitely one thing you should be familiar with is the idea and concept of noticing how you think. That should have come up. It would have been brought home to you through communicating with others. You would have been learning that sometimes the way you think about things isn't the way other people think about things. Sometimes the way you communicate isn't the best way for people to hear things. That will have come up. And so this is a time to kind of go back over all of this. Kind of just wrapping up this phase, noticing what you've learned, noticing how far you've come, noticing what you maybe could work on in this month, maybe just quickly stretching to learn a little bit more, see something in a new way. And so that's the first 3 weeks. And then it makes this shift into Saturn, makes it shift into Capricorn, and it's a perceptible change. Something big may happen with your home base, with your actual home. So sometimes with Saturn going here, it's suddenly it feels like a restriction. Maybe you downsize where you live. Maybe somebody moves in and it kind of restricts your space. Maybe something about carrying the burden of a home feels heavy. Maybe suddenly you want to pare down all your furniture, get rid of belongings. Not always, but it can feel that way sometimes. It's a great time to pare down and to get rid of extra junk. It is a good time to downsize. Sometimes it just makes sense during this time. Saturn kind of helps you do it. It gives you the willingness and often the desire for a smaller space, the desire for having fewer possessions. It feels better during this time. It can indicate also a person in your family or a roommate situation where you feel you need to maybe take care of them, or maybe they come in as a support system. It's hard to say. Somebody may come into your world who is both. It's hard. It's like there could be both a support system and also impose certain limitations. Whenever we share our space with anybody, even if we love them a lot, it can sometimes feel like a compromise, because suddenly it's not all about you. You know, you've got to share and work things out together. So sometimes a roommate coming in, maybe suddenly you're moving in with somebody you're dating. It can feel restrictive just because it's no longer just you and whatever you want to do, how you want to do things. So, but it can also feel very supportive and stabilizing. So it's not all bad. What one has to watch out for with Saturn in this base area of the chart is to keep working on that lesson of how you think, because this is a time when you can really apply and use those lessons to keep you going through this phase, because this is a bit of a transition here. So to keep you going smoothly through this, self-development would be very worthwhile. Maybe you're continuing on a path of self-development, but definitely self-development here. It's not just about getting rid of furniture and space you don't need. It's about releasing the baggage in our minds from the past conditioning that no longer serves us. So to be able to do that, one has to have an awareness about how one thinks and notice how maybe some of our thinking has been formed by past events and how we can undo that if we choose to. So a lot going on here. I would say for Libras, it may be a good time to get a reading or do some coaching. I do coaching, I do readings, but from anybody. And maybe even getting psychological support. Not to scare you, but this is a good time that Saturn at the base of your chart can represent getting a good support system in place. For whatever reason. And kind of getting it into your schedule, getting something that's reliable, like a therapist, like a coach, or like a friend who's there with you, but building that in so you have the support you need. And like I think I said earlier, if you go to my website, I have an extra download on Venus. Venus can also represent you and money and love. And there'll be a separate download on that for December. And then there's also on my website the 2018 forecast. So that's www.freshastrology.com. All right, take care.